With UJAM's latest addition to the Symphonic Elements family, PERRCS gets you the cinematic percussion sounds from Oscar-winning film composer Hans Zimmer's own library. PERRCS can be super inspiring, and it's not just for film scores. You can add fire to some trap beats, and you can add a modern, polished feel to pop tracks. With the focus on top-end percussion instruments, there's a lot of variety in PERRCS. Of course, there's a lot of natural-sounding percussion, but you can also get creative with sound design, pushing the sounds further and further. And most importantly, you can take control of that sound, controlling the balance and dynamics of your instruments. Now, you might already be familiar with this if you've already used some of UJAM's plugins before, but the way it works is our white keys hold phrases. And as you can see labeled in the plugin, we have common phrases on the left side of the keyboard. These will be the same across every preset. But every preset also comes with a different style, and that's where the style phrases on the right side of our keyboard come in. These are bespoke patterns that are meant to fit a certain style, and usually they increase in intensity as we go up the keyboard. Intros, fills, and endings are basically like embellishments that we can use to lead into or use in conjunction with the phrases. So of course, PERRCS sounds fantastic in this cinematic demo that I've created. It fits right at home with the other symphonic elements like strings and brass, which you're hearing. But I do want to hone in on the intro here for a minute, where I've blended it with Symphonic Elements drums. So if I solo Symphonic Elements drums here for a moment, you can hear that I'm using it for that sort of low tom feel, which sounds really good. But along with PERRCS, we've got a few other textures, percussion textures. Some lean a bit more to the electronic, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I especially like this preset from the Monsters category. It's called Closing In. I think that's an apt title. And one thing that I mentioned earlier was control over dynamics with PERRCS. So if you take a look at the modulation strip in the plugin window and the modulation strip on my actual keyboard here, I'm able to build in the dynamics and take control over these instruments in that way. Which is great in the context of this intro, because we need to build up gradually to build the tension. Now, combining different patterns as well as fills makes for a really dynamic percussion sound, but also just combining multiple layers of PERRCS is awesome too. And this layer right here is just the cymbal sound, right? And actually, these are not pre-created patterns, because we have essentially some playable one-shots in every kit. So you can create your own patterns, or add in your own flourishes to the pre-created patterns. Now let's jump off the big cinematic score for a moment, and let's utilize this in sort of a trap hip-hop style beat. So just like before, we're going to use a few different layers of PERRCS in this beat. With a step back, when I come around, try and get back, it's that. Know that she into all of that, wanna come round me, yeah, what and turn like bow. Leave my soul running, it's cold in this house. You getting funny, I know they're about. And what I'll do is I'll take the vocals out, but I'm also going to take PERRCS out. So here's the beat with no PERRCS at all. It's kind of just a lot more basic at this level. Add PERRCS back in, just livens up the beat a lot more. One way I used PERRCS in the intro, first we've got this sound from the ticks category, ticks natural. You know, there's a ton of these natural stick sounding instruments, which I think fit well in a lot of different genres. But my point is, I actually used it incidentally instead of holding down the phrase. So I just did these little fragments of phrases, which you can see here in the MIDI. And I also did it here in the verse section. Just little fragments of the phrases coming in. And something else I want to point out here in PERRCS is the crossfader. So all the sounds in PERRCS, all the presets are made up of different types of percussion sounds all combined into one. But with the crossfader, we can mix between the more higher end percussion and then introduce some of the lower percussion instruments as well. And you're able to control the balance between those. You can also just outright turn the low drums off or the high drums off. But this is also something you could automate for a more dynamic performance. And since this is a more trap style beat with trap style drums and 808s, I'm basically pushing all of the PERRCS instruments towards the higher end. So this pattern, for instance, which has that steady stomp, I don't want that to be too overbearing because we've already got a kick and an 808 happening. So if we just push the sound a little to the higher end, it fits nicely in the mix. Okay, now that little transition, that little fill you might have heard, we're automating the dynamics and also utilizing a fill pattern. And we're also using one of the atmospheric presets for this crash sound. So I'm using PERRCS across 7 different layers in this beat, and I think it truly does elevate it and energize it when you compare it to how it sounds with no PERRCS. And finally, let's give it a try in something lighter, a more radio pop style beat. Now in this beat, I wanted to use a few sounds that sounded less natural than the acoustic percussion we heard before. So this first sound in the intro is from the glitchy category of presets. And some of these more glitchy or electronic sounding presets are what make PERRCS even more versatile beyond just, like I said, the natural acoustic percussion, but you can pair them together. So in the hook of this track, we're using a more kind of gated preset of PERRCS, and we're achieving that sound utilizing a finisher effect called chop chop. Now, finisher effect, there's a number of different categories of them, including like the ability to add dirt or bit crushing and distortion to your sound, presets that can send your sound beyond its normal sound, like this space station preset. Totally washing it out with reverb there. With some of the more natural percussion, and PERRCS is definitely elevating the overall sound of this beat. If I take PERRCS away, it's fine, but it's just like a little more simple. PERRCS kind of brings it to another level. And just like the trap beat, I want to shout out this little transition with a fill here. It's just a little special flair, and it sounds really, really natural because these are real percussion sounds from Hans Zimmer's library. And we have a lot of options for transforming our sound beyond just the finisher. You have control over the high and the low drums where we get character effects for both. So I could just bit crush the highs if I wanted to. And then motion effects, of course, we can add things like different delays or filters that are synced in time. shape allows us to play with the attack so we can get a nice snappy, short attack. And then as we push it further to the right, we start to lose the attack, but we get lots of tail. I want this to be nice and snappy, and focusing the EQ on some of the higher end content rather than some of the more rolled off high sound. Let's not forget that these are sounds from Hans Zimmer's library, so there's a reason that they sound fantastic. PERRCS is the latest addition to the Symphonic Elements family. If you've already tried other Symphonic Elements titles, PERRCS is a no-brainer, but if you're new to UJAM's plugins, PERRCS is a great way to jump in and start adding that percussive energy to whatever genre you're making. More info about PERRCS is in the description down below. Let us know what genre you think you want to be making with PERRCS. For now, that's going to be it. My name is Tatro, here with UJAM. Have a good one.